guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin. I am 28 years old and I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This past July, my now fiance Nick and I traveled to Europe. We got engaged in Paris. We did some wine tasting in Bordeaux. We traveled around Italy, visiting the Amalfi Coast. We stayed in Positano, also took a day trip to Capri, and then we ended our trip by leaving Rome. And we were supposed to do a little sightseeing in Rome, but our plans changed. So today I wanted to sit down and do a long overdue sit down video of what I wish I knew before I went to Europe. What are some of the things that surprised me about Europe, and what are some of the things I didn't really like about Europe, and also what are some of the things that pleasantly surprised me. So it's basically like a verbal Europe trip recap. If you're more interested in the actual things that we did there, I have a playlist linked in my description box called Travel Vlogs, so check that out. This video is an opinion video. It's my personal opinion and personal perspective, so you don't have to agree with that. And if you kind of get offended by people's opinions, if they're a little bit hot take, a little bit controversial, then this video is probably not for you. And I don't really need a bunch of rude comments on this video like some of my other popular hot take videos. So if you disagree, just simply click off the video. But with that being said, if you are thinking about traveling to Europe, if you have always wanted to go to Europe, then make sure you stay tuned through this whole video, because there's a lot of good information in here. At least I think so. These are definitely things that I wish I was more aware of before traveling there. So let's get into it. The first thing that totally shocked me about Europe was the insane driving in Naples. So whenever we went to Positano, we stayed in Naples for a night, and then we took the ferry from Naples to Positano. That is one of the main ways to get to Positano. It's also cheaper. I believe you can also take a car from Sorrento, and you could do that or the train, but going to Naples, taking the ferry from the port is very common. So we did that, and I had a little bit of reservation about Naples. I definitely Googled, is it safe? And for the most part, I was seeing yes. A lot of people were just comparing it to a big city and saying that, of course, Naples is safe. So I expected it to be safe. And it wasn't unsafe in the terms of pickpocketing, but the driving was absolutely insane. Whenever we landed from Bordeaux at the Naples airport, we got into a taxi. The taxi driver was insane. He sped so fast right out of the airport parking lot. The airport parking lot was a zoo. There were so many taxis. The guy probably went 50 miles an hour in this little small parking lot, slammed on his brakes. He cut people off. He cursed people out when people just were merging in front of him. He was getting so close to people on their bumpers. It was absolutely terrifying. And he went so fast on the roads. I literally was praying the Our Father, I hope I do not die on this car ride. That is how scary it was to me. Nick was also wow. His seat didn't even have a seat belt. It was just very dangerous, very terrifying, and very irresponsible driving. And I was very, very shaken up by this experience. We made it to the hotel safely, but it was just hands down the most unsafe car ride I have ever been in. And it just really set me off kind of with a sour taste in my mouth for Italy because of this experience. And I wish I could say that it was just one isolated experience, but I found all the other cabs we took to also be the drivers to be somewhat irresponsible, and they were also somewhat irresponsible in Rome as well. Not as bad. We had one really safe taxi driver in Rome who took us from the Rome train station to our hotel. She was very safe, but overall that was the minority of the experiences. The next day I literally wanted to walk 2 miles with our suitcases to the ferry. I was that afraid of getting in a car again. But Nick was no, we cannot do that. So we ended up having our hotel book us a cab, and they called a cab company, and I feel that was a little bit more reputable than us just trying to hail one on the streets. And this person was a little bit more safe than that other person. They weren't swearing at other drivers and driving on people's bumpers, but he did drive very fast and there's just like not great adherence to traffic laws in Italy. So that's something that I just really didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was. I knew like it was definitely a little bit more reckless than the driving in America, but overall that was just like a frightening, not great experience. And if I ever go back to Positano, I will not go through Naples. I will definitely take the train through Sorrento. And I would just also recommend that to anyone that's going there as well. Number 2, Positano is just not as Instagrammable as it looks. It really is not super pink and super vibrant like you see on Instagram. Like you see all of these really breathtaking pictures. They've been edited so much. I will pop on a picture right here of me in Positano, pictures that I took in Positano, and those don't have filters. They are just the true quality of the iPhone camera. And as you can see, they are not that vibrant. And that's not to say that Positano isn't very unique, that it's not beautiful, because it is, but it just doesn't look like what it looks like on Instagram. And so to me, that was a little bit of a letdown. And I think if you are spending the money to go to Positano because it's not cheap, you should be aware that it's not going to look like how it does on Instagram. The third thing I wish I would have known about traveling to Europe is I wish I would have really done detailed research on the weather, because the weather was just all over the place. We started our trip off in Paris, and it was very cold in Paris. For being July, I was cold. It was at times in the 50s and 60s, and I had mostly summer clothes. Fortunately, I did bring like one sweater and a longer dress, but other than that, I really wasn't dressed correctly for Paris. Did buy a sweatshirt over there, so that kind of helped, but it wasn't super warm, and that's because Paris is actually very far north. I also was really taken aback by how hot it was in Positano. I knew it was going to be hot, but I mean, I've traveled to Florida in the summer a lot growing up, and Positano is hotter than that. It was just insane, and that's because they don't use a lot of air conditioning in Italy. The water that you drink is not cold. There's no ice. There's really like no ways to cool down. So I think that contributes to how hot it is. But I just wouldn't recommend going to Positano in July or August. I would really try to go there in the off season because I don't think it's comfortable. And I'm someone that generally likes hot weather, but it was so hot that like as soon as you walked outside of your hotel, like sweat just started like dripping down like your neck. Like that's how disgusting it was. Also, there's a lot of outdoor dining there. That's the majority of the dining. So there's like no fans, like nothing. You know, when you go to Disney World and you sit outside, they always have like cool fans blowing on you and like those like mists. Nothing like that. So it just was really hot. If you do travel over there, I would just bring like the lightest clothing possible. Again, like I said, I had some longer like beachy dresses there. I didn't wear them at all because I was just so hot and uncomfortable. I think Nick and I also got like pretty dehydrated there from being at the beach, and like I said, water is not that accessible. Like the water is not that cold when you drink it, and I wish I would have also brought like liquid IV there, because I don't really think liquid IV is like a super necessary product. I think it has a lot of sugar in it, but I think whenever you are on the beach in Positano for several hours and it's hard to get water, like you need it over there. That's what that's designed for. So just maybe consider bringing liquid IV. Just very hot weather. But I also wish I would have like researched Paris a little bit more too, because Paris was so cool. I would say Bordeaux was comfortable. Bordeaux was kind of how I thought everything would be like. It was, you know, 80 degrees, hot, but like not overbearing. So that was like the one good weather experience we had was in Bordeaux. Also in our engagement in Paris, because that was the nicest day there. I don't know how it was so nice that day. It was literally amazing. Definitely a blessing. The fourth thing I wish I would have been more aware of is all of the strikes. Now, I had heard that Europe went under strike a lot. I thought it was more of a thing confined to Paris, actually, but fortunately we didn't really experience that in Paris or Bordeaux. It was all in Italy. In fact, the Rome airport tends to strike every year in July. So if you are planning to go to Rome in July, you might want to read up on when they're planning on having their strike, because We were supposed to fly out of Rome July 15th so that we had one entire day to sightsee in Rome and then one evening there. While we were in Bordeaux, about a week before we were supposed to leave Europe and fly out of the Rome airport, we got a text from United that said, hey, there's going to be a Rome airport strike on July 15th. You might want to think about changing your flight. So, you know, when you get a text like that, like I've never had a text from an airline telling me to change my flight. So we were like pretty freaked out about it. For some reason, we couldn't like change our flight at all in Bordeaux. We kept trying to call different numbers from the airline and just access stuff online, and like nothing was working. But we got to Italy and miraculously, like, we were able to call the airline and leave a day early, and we ended up spending like I think it was like about $200 more each to switch our flights, which was not as much as I expected it to be. Again, we flew on United, and we ended up, the whole big thing, we came back to the United States and there was bad weather and our connecting flight got canceled and it got delayed for 2 days, so we ended up driving home, and we spent like another $800 on a rental car to drive from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. And yeah, so it was just this whole big like extra expense that we had to pay for because this airport went on strike. So yeah, that was a thing. It was really, really annoying. We didn't get to see like anything in Rome. We had one evening there, but we just ate dinner at the hotel and we didn't see anything because we were leaving the next day. So yeah, that happened. Also, the Rome train stations, or I guess all of Italy, the train stations were striking too on the day that we were taking the train from Naples to Rome. And I was just kind of like, if I cannot stay in Naples, like this just cannot be happening. But fortunately the strike ended at like 3 p.m. and our train ticket was like literally 3:20. So if we had a train ticket any earlier in the day, who knows what would have happened to us. So I would just say, like, be aware of these strikes, try to research them and see if there's any information about them online, because after I had done some more research, like I said, July, like mid-July, it seems like the airport always goes on strike. So, you know, be aware of that because that can really wreck your travel plans. Like, we obviously wanted to get back to the US because I had taken a lot of time off of work. Nick was transitioning from being a fellow to an attending during that time, so he didn't have to go back to work till early August. But for me, like, that would have really like screwed up my work schedule. I was supposed to start a new audit when I came back, so just a whole big thing. And you know, just try to do your research on these strikes and try to plan your travel around it. Number 5, carrying luggage in Positano from the port to wherever you're staying. So we didn't stay up too high in Positano. I'll preface that by saying too high because it seemed really, really high up, even though it wasn't, because of the cliffs. It's brutal. Like, it's so hot and you're walking up these like steep hills and you're carrying luggage, and it was just really, really difficult. I consider myself a pretty strong person, a pretty fit person, and I was kind of like, yeah, we can do it. We can take our luggage ourselves. No way. Pay for the porter service for them to take your luggage to your hotel. We weren't really aware of this service, that it existed prior to going there. We just thought we can take it ourselves. It will be no problem, whatever. Like, don't do that. Even if you're staying relatively close to the beach, just pay. Trust me, you will be so, so grateful. I will also say, don't stay up really high in Positano either. That was something I read about online that I was actually aware of, because we did look at one Airbnb that was pretty high up, and it had a lot of great reviews. It was a pretty nice price for Positano, but a lot of people were saying that the shuttle around around Positano was very unreliable and didn't always come, and you know, you're not going to walk from the top of Positano all the way down to the beach. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I was glad that I did pick a place that was closer to the beach. We stayed at, I can't remember the name of the hotel now. I'll write it across the screen. But I do recommend the hotel we stayed at in Positano. It was very clean. The people were very accommodating. The breakfast wasn't included, but it wasn't too much money. They had like a buffet, and it was just a nice hotel. So I do recommend where we stayed there, but definitely, definitely pay for that luggage service. If I can convince you of nothing else, I want to convince you of that. Number 6 was, I don't know if this was just we got really lucky, but I feel like pickpocketing wasn't as big of a deal as we thought it could be. We were definitely really scared about like pickpocketing when we went to Paris. Like our first couple of days there, we were so vigilant. I remember when I was at restaurants, I would like not take off my purse. I would like wear it across me and be eating like this over my purse. It was so uncomfortable. And I don't know, like it's good to be vigilant, and we could have just gotten lucky. Like definitely be vigilant, be aware of your surroundings, but you know, you don't have to go around thinking like someone is gonna like come up to you and slash your purse. I would say like don't let your like awareness get in the way of having fun. You know, a lot of things are replaceable. Like if someone steals your credit cards, like the bank is just going to shut them off. I really think like the biggest things are like engagement ring, phone, but you know, I don't know. It's just, it's definitely a concern, but don't be like totally scared of it. Don't think that that's like the biggest thing you face in Europe, because I feel like for the most part we took a lot of the trains in Paris and they all were pretty safe. I think we were in good areas, and you know, I don't know, I didn't feel like threatened by people on the train stations, but like I said, I did feel like really threatened by the safety of the driving in Italy. So you know, just everything in perspective. Number 7, this was really surprising to me, is that you literally cannot eat dinner anywhere at all in Europe, whether it's Bordeaux, Paris, or Italy, until 7 p.m. Like we had a reservation at 7 p.m. on our first night in Paris, and we got there at like 6:55, and they literally would not seat us till exactly 7 o'clock, which was wild. Like that never happened in the United States, and it's not that big of a deal. But if you're like me, where you're used to eating dinner a little bit earlier, you know, just keep that in mind and like eat bigger lunches. I'm not a super big lunch person, but that's definitely necessary over there because you're not eating till later, and you know, usually the food doesn't come out till like 8 o'clock, so it's definitely a later dinner culture. And then this is not specific to Europe, but it is specific to international travel. I would definitely wear a sweatsuit on a plane. That was a mistake I made. I remember when I went to Japan in college how cold it was on the plane, but I kind of forgot about that when I went to Europe, and I thought, oh, it's summer, I'm just gonna wear like biker shorts and a t-shirt. But it was so cold, and I wish I was wearing like a sweatshirt bundled up. I guess when you're flying at such high altitudes over the Atlantic, it just gets really cold in the cabin. So wear a sweatshirt and bring a blanket. Now let's turn the tables and talk about the things I liked in Europe. Of course, I loved my engagement. It was literally perfect. Watch that video if you haven't seen it. It was like the most magical day of my life, and Paris will always hold a really special place in my heart because of that. But some other things in general that I liked about Europe were, I really liked the concept of just like sitting in a cafe and just like ordering a coffee and a croissant or just an Aperol Spritz. I love how you can just like sit down and get that, where in America, you know, you have to go to the bar if you're just getting a drink. You don't get table service. It's not as like casual. And I just really liked that aspect of it in Europe. I also liked how all the cafes, you could sit outside. In Paris, this was especially nice. I really loved when we went to Montmartre and we sat outside at the cafes. It was just a really cute neighborhood. We went to this one cafe called Bimbo, which I think actually means like belle or beautiful. It doesn't mean like the US version of bimbo. But it was a really, really cute cafe, and we got these like amazing spritzes and amazing fries, and it was just a whole vibe. Like you don't get that vibe over here in America. So that was something I really loved, was the cafe culture. Another one of our favorite cafes was La Favorite in Paris. It was just so good. I think we went there 2 or 3 times. The croissants and the cappuccinos were incredible. Another thing I really like about Europe is how much people dress up. You can tell fashion is really important to people in Europe. Not only in Paris, but I found in Italy as well. Like I felt underdressed at times, and I feel like in the US, I'm always like one of the most dressed up people, no matter where I go. But you know, people don't wear sweatshirts there. They don't wear like, they really don't even wear like ripped jeans, or like the jeans wearing is so much less over there. I feel like women are always wearing like dressy pants or skirts or dresses, and it's refreshing to me to see people like care about that kind of stuff and really just, I don't know, like just be stylish and just, you know, put that extra effort in. I really like that about Europe. I also really liked how much healthier the food is over there and how much less preservatives are on things. Like you can really tell when you eat the food, it's not as salty and it's not as flavorful at all, which kind of sucks in the moment, but I do feel like it's really healthy. Like in France, they give you potatoes and there's no salt on them whatsoever. It's so much healthier than over here in the US. So that was something I liked, was just the fact that you could go out to eat and just be presented with these healthier alternatives at like regular, normal, mainstream restaurants. Whereas like in the US, I feel like you have to go to more of like a targeted healthy restaurant, like First Watch, for example, something like that. You know, not everywhere has the healthy option from the US. Finally, I just love how like quaint everything is. Like the architecture is really beautiful, it's really historic, and that's just also not something you get as much in the US. You get it a little bit in the Northeast, older cities like Boston, Philadelphia, but you know, it's not like that. And Europe is much older. It's not like that everywhere in the US, and Europe is of course much older, so I thought that was really cool. But I've been talking like nonstop for like 25 minutes, so I think I'm going to end this video here. If you have any questions about my experience at all, leave them down below. And again, this is just my perspective. Everybody has a different perspective, a different take, but I think these things are important. And if you are considering going to Europe for the first time, definitely consider some of the things that I'm saying. I think they would help you, and I wish I knew these things whenever I went there last year. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!